It might be frustrating when you have to comply with what an entitled person asks of you, but don't lose hope. Sometimes you can comply without giving them what they want. That's right, it's time for some hilarious stories about people who use malicious compliance against the entitled people in their life. The clock is always ticking into overtime for this diligent employee. He works to go above and beyond what's expected. It'll surprise you to hear how his boss responds to that. This entitled mother is trying her best to manipulate a girl into lying. Why? And what does this girl do about it? This employee is trying his best to help out the store's customers, but when his boss isn't satisfied, he finds a way to keep doing his job and drive her crazy at the same time. What does he do? You'll only find out by watching this episode of VoiceyHere's Entitled Parents featuring Malicious Compliance. This story was called, "Okay, I'll do what you say and not work 80 hours a week." So this happened in 2017, almost a year after I started a new job. To give some background where I had previously worked, I was mostly responsible for managing the costs of projects within a construction program, which, long story short, was refurbishing a major bank's branch buildings. I had worked on this program for almost 10 years, and so when a competitor won the new program contract, I was headhunted by them for my expertise with that particular client. The pay increase was significant, and as part of the job offer, I was told that due to the local office being more than 1 hour commute away, that I would have the option to work from home when I was not required for meetings, etc. So this move happened in July 2017, and the first 6 months were uneventful, carried on during the role I had been doing for almost a decade. Come January 2018, I was given a promotion so that I was now not only responsible for individual projects, but for managing the whole program with a team of 5 people. Let's just say that this team of 5 were undertrained by the previous management. This team was also based out of different locations to ensure national coverage, meaning that the majority of my interactions with my team was over Skype or phone. And if I wanted to spend face-to-face time with them, I had to travel somewhere between 2 and 3 hours one way, but I tried to be efficient with my time and used it by traveling by train and continuing to work on my laptop. This will be important later. But happy to be moving further up the ladder, I decided not to make too much of a deal out of the fact I would not be getting a pay rise with this change in roles, and my logic being, I'll let my results speak for themselves, then they'll have to recognize what I've done for them. Over the next couple of months doing 70 to 80 hour weeks, my contract stated I was required to complete 40, but I didn't mind the extra time, as I again wanted to show them they had made the right choice by giving me the promotion. And with plenty of time spent training up the team further, we were finally getting somewhere, and after a particular successful presentation to the client, for which I was actually given a performance bonus for, everything started to go downhill. The meeting I mentioned took place on a Friday, and the following week, my manager, let's call her Allison, was due to be on holiday for a week. Whilst she was off, she had asked that if her boss contacted me, could I drop everything and assist with his request? I said I would and went home for the weekend. The following week, I never heard from her boss. Cue Monday morning of that following week. I was working from home that day and booted up my laptop and almost instantly got a Skype message from Allison requesting that I have a meeting with her at her office, approximately 2 hours away from where I live. The next day, I thought nothing of it as I spent at least 1 a week at the office with a member of my team, as mentioned above. When I got to the office the next day, I was expecting the meeting to be a quick catch-up of anything that had happened whilst she was on holiday. She wasn't a very involved manager, so the fact she didn't need to know on her first day back didn't surprise me. However, what preceded was an absolute show. She started screaming at me for not doing anything whilst she was on holiday, and that I had purposefully been negligent by not doing as she asked, by not helping her boss. I explained that he had never been in touch with me, and so had thought the required work was delayed. Again, not uncommon. She again said I was negligent, and should have contacted him if I hadn't heard anything. When I explained I was extremely busy with an unexpected issue that had come up, she told me that I should have done what she asked me to and left it to one of my team to handle. To avoid any further arguing, I said it would not happen again. However, internally, this was the beginning of my compliance. Over the next few months, I continued my working hours, however, would always prioritize her requested. Some so mundane she really could have just done them herself in 15 minutes. And if issues came up while I was working on these, told my team that unfortunately, they would have to redirect the issue to my boss, so she could prioritize my workload. She did not like this, as I should have done this myself. To take revenge on my petty compliance, she decided that my usual work pattern of 3 days a week working from home, where I would generally work at least 14 hours, and 2 days working from offices, based 2 or 3 hours away, I would leave at 6 AM and generally would not be home until 8 PM, was no longer agreeable. The conversation went like this. You need to work in the office every day. The current agreement no longer works as it is causing delays in communication. It wasn't. But my local office is more than 1 hour away. Well, we'll have to relocate you to a closer office. There isn't a closer office. That is my local office, and because of traffic, it can sometimes take me 2 hours to travel one way. This had sometimes happened when there was a train strike or road closure, etc. Well, you have to work in your local office then. If you want me to work in the office, I won't be doing any overtime. The only reason I'm happy working the hours I am is because I'm at home. I don't care. I want you working in the office. Okay, no problem. Fast forward another 2 months and I'm doing exactly what was agreed. Working my hours. When traveling, I do not open up my laptop, as this was outside office hours. I don't look at emails received after I leave for the day, and for me, I'm enjoying having my evenings back. Allison did not enjoy this, as it meant late requests were completely ignored, and usually ended up being late. There was one occasion where she emailed me 1 minute late requesting some information she needed for an important breakfast meeting that she had the next day. But because of when she asked, I wasn't able to get back to this to her until an hour after her meeting started. I took particular joy in pointing out to her when she sent me the email and our previous agreement, but due to my treatment I had been receiving, I decided to begin looking for new employment. Then came the day to hand in my notice. She had the biggest smile when I gave it to her. I knew the whole thing was just a way of getting me out. However, something she didn't understand was how far removed she was from my day-to-day tasks. So when I had a program handover meeting with her a couple of days before I left, I finished 2 weeks early as I had holiday days that needed to be taken before my final day. I can't remember the whole meeting. However, the below is a great example of how the meeting went. So who does ABC? I do that. Okay, and who does XYZ? I do that as well. Oh, that's you as well. And who does 1, 2, 3? Yeah, that's me. Wait, you do that? How do you have the time to do that? That used to be one of the things I did in the evening, so no one could interrupt me. It doesn't take too long, maybe 2 hours a day. Okay, but who does 7, 8, 9 when you have to do ABC? Oh, when that happens, I used to start work early, finish ABC, then do 7, 8, 9. Please bear in mind that during this meeting, she was becoming paler with every one of this back and forths, to the point where I thought she was going to pass out. The look on her face as I left her, with a giant heap of crap to look after, was almost the best thing I have ever personally felt. But the best thing is, I have recently been in touch with a previous colleague where we discussed Allison and how things were going. Turns out that after I left, the entire program came to a grinding halt, due to the fact that Allison had almost no experience with the client or their requirements. It turns out that minor issues were becoming huge problems, with the resolution taking way too long. This, and the fact that Allison hadn't trained up my replacement properly, found out he started a week after I left. The entire program came to a complete stop, and that's because of all the things that had gone wrong that she was responsible for. She was sacked about 6 months after I left. Still brings a smile to my face. I think this story helps us remember the importance of knowing our worth. This guy knew exactly what it is that he was worth, in terms of his time, his expertise, and he was very intentional with how he was going to spend his time. That's why one of the most important things you could probably do is to improve your skills and your expertise to increase the value of your labor. It doesn't mean that people will always recognize it, but it does mean when they don't recognize it, they're going to pay just as much, if not more, than you do. This story was called Lying Mother Ordered Me to Apologize to Her and Her Child for Something I Didn't Do. So, I did. I, 13 female at the time, was on holiday in France with my family and a friend of mine who was the same age as me. We had managed to make some friends whilst we were there, and there was a water park with slides inside the resort which we played in every day. I was a good child. I never really pushed the boundaries and was respectful of rules and waiting my turn, and my parents knew this. This plays a major part in the story. Myself and my friends had been playing on the water slides one day. 3 of the slides, including climbing up a tower and queuing down the stairs until it was your turn to go. So we all queued up along the stairs, and eventually we got to have a turn down the big slides. Once we had had all our turns, we went over to my parents, who had been sunbathing on some nearby sun lounges. Just as we had reached them, a cold, wet hand slapped down on my right shoulder from behind and spun me around. Next thing I knew, I was staring at a very ticked off lady and her young son next to her, screaming at me. She accused me of dragging her son down the stairs of the water slides so I could push in at the front of the queue, and apparently I had done this a number of times. I denied it. My friends who I was with the whole time denied it, but she wasn't having any of it. She was not willing to listen. Her word was gospel. Once this lady had finished with me, she then turned to my mum, who could barely get a word in edgeways to defend me. She was demanding I apologize to her and her son, and for me to be disciplined immediately. My parents, knowing that I wouldn't have done anything like what this woman was accusing me of, refused to discipline me because they didn't believe her. But she wouldn't give up, and this woman was going on and on and on, her voice getting even louder than when it started off. She was making a scene. Mum gave me this look. I never saw this look before, and I've never seen it again. But there was no misunderstanding between myself and my mother in that moment. I turned to this lady, looked her square in the face and said, "I'm really sorry that you're a compulsive liar." And then I turned to her young son and said, "I'm sorry that your mum thinks it's okay to bully children." Her mouth hit the floor. She made this goldfish facial expression for a few seconds and then stormed off, while sticking a finger up at us. I caught her later to be what I'm assuming was complaining about us to a lifeguard, but he wasn't interested. Nothing ever came of it. Now, unless you see something like this happen, why would you spend so much time bothering to get an apology out of someone over something that can't be changed? Obviously, you've got the wrong person. And if they're the kind of person that's not going to apologize and they're going to make this much of a big deal out of it, even when they're called out, it's probably not worth bothering. The problem is when you falsely accuse somebody of something, then the real perpetrator is out there getting away with it. But sometimes people don't care about true justice for everyone, just justice for them. This story was called I Always Go the Extra Mile, Janet. I used to work in a large do-it-yourself store and had a manager, I'll call her Janet, that would run her department like a tyrant. I was her least favorite employee, and she made this clear from day one. One day, in an annual performance meeting, she expressed how disappointed she was in me, and that I should go the extra mile for customers, and they're always right. This went on my personal file. This store had lots of younger staff and would regularly get unreasonable requests from customers, especially on timber cutting. This is when I had the genius idea to do every request a customer gave, to see how far I could push it. A couple of weeks later, an elderly couple came in wanting a fireplace. I showed them the display model. It was high up on a wall, and the gentleman wanted to see the boxed wood color to see if it would match his furniture. He says the display is perfect, but this one is wrong. I informed him it's because the wood was coated in a special varnish, so it looks fresh on display. He says, "Can I have that one up there?" I say, "Of course you can. It will be ready by 8 PM tonight." as I have to take it apart and replace it with the boxed one. 3 hours later, Janet walks in, and I'm building a full fireplace in the middle of the store.
Why the heck have you taken that down? It was fitted a week ago.
The customer wanted this one, and they're always right. So I've gone the extra mile. She storms off and I spend a full shift replacing it, taking my time. The customer was so happy I did it. They gave me £20 in a thank you card. The following day, a local gospel choir came in at 19:30, 30 minutes from closing.
Hello child, could you do this timber order?
It was almost a full pallet of timber sheets to be cut into lots of pieces. I explained it would take me a couple of hours, and we closed in 30 minutes.
We don't mind waiting, and you'll be doing the Lord's work. Jesus was a carpenter, child.
Who am I to deny the Lord's work, even as an atheist? I asked the store manager if I can do it, as it's for a local church, and they're doing a new stage for Sunday. Store manager says yes. Please stay late, and Janet can stay late too to lock up after you, and I'll lock the rest of the store. Just get them to pay before we close. Janet was annoyed. She was meant to go out to a party, but the choir was so happy they were singing gospel songs with my name in it for 3 hours. When I was done, I loaded the van and they hugged me. A very nice review was later posted online, and my store manager was happy. Not Janet. She tried to give me a written warning for making her late, and I refused to sign it. And I said the customer was right, so I was right. The store manager was informed of my refusal to sign, and he went mental at Janet for giving me a warning. He said she was undermining his authority, and he told me to do it. And she was giving me petty warnings for nothing. My previous warnings by Janet were removed. Janet got a serious talking to, and a warning. I still did the occasional unreasonable request for customers, if it would kill some time, or was for a good cause, like building a full rabbit hutch out of scrap wood for a single dad and his little girl and charging £1 for it, as we decided the price for offcut wood. Most importantly, Janet learned to be careful what she pulled staff up on, and left me alone. Freaking Janet, man. The funny thing is, he was doing malicious compliance, and in the end Janet was almost a little bit right. By doing everything the customer wanted, they were so happy that it even made the boss happy. But I guess it was a win-win, because Janet ended up being unhappy. If you'd like your story to be narrated by me, don't forget to visit the subreddit r/VoiceyHere, link below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Alright, I'll see you in the next one.